Is artificial intelligence coming for your jobs? I don't want to sound alarming. I know you've heard this before, but is it true? Could AI really take your jobs? A new report says yes. The report was published by OECD, that's Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. OECD, it's a 38-member bloc. It consists of mostly wealthy nations, but some developing economies too. So the OECD studied jobs that could be at risk due to artificial intelligence. And here's what it found. Highly skilled jobs will be the most affected. Basically, professions like law, medicine, finance, and engineering. Now, if you're working in a skilled job, you could be in danger. Some numbers now. 27% of all jobs are at high risk, which means they could easily be automated. 3 out of 5 workers feel AI could take their jobs. But will it happen immediately? The answer is no. You see, artificial intelligence is still in its early stages. We've told you about ChatGPT earlier, how the app is taking over the world. So basically, we are at the cusp. It's not about whether an AI revolution will happen, it's about when it will happen. More importantly, it's about how it will impact you. In India, it looks like the purge has already begun. Today, an Indian startup called Dukaan made it to the headlines. This company has fired 90% of its staff, 90%. Why? Because it is replacing them with AI bots. Of course, there was a lot of backlash. Imagine firing 90% of your employees. Obviously, people are angry. So the founder had to speak out. He called it a tough but necessary decision, a way to adapt with the times. He says it helps reduce costs and increase efficiency. Now, AI has a few advantages over human workers. The most obvious, of course, is cost. Most AI programs are free. You don't have to pay them salaries. AI programs are also much faster. They process information 1,000 times faster than human brains. So according to the Dukaan CEO, it was a no-brainer. And he's not alone. In the month of May, American companies announced a horde of layoffs. More than 80,000 people were laid off. Nearly 4,000 of them were due to AI. That's around 5% of jobs lost to artificial intelligence, which brings us to the question, what does it mean for your jobs? You see, every time a new technology emerges, it triggers fear. The fear of losing jobs, the fear of taking over the world. We saw that with computers, we saw that with the internet, and now again we're seeing it with artificial intelligence. But the fact is, AI will not take your jobs. It will make some jobs redundant. It will also generate new jobs. A Goldman Sachs study says artificial intelligence will disrupt 300 million jobs. Imagine that, 300 million. So it's not all doom and gloom. Many believe there would be huge potential benefits in sectors like medicine and engineering. Reports predict that AI could lead to a 7% increase in global GDP. Companies are investing more and more in artificial intelligence. IT services firm Wipro is investing $1 billion over the next 3 years. So obviously, there will be new jobs, hopefully better ones. There will also be a need for AI engineers, data scientists, and ethicists, basically professionals who can train AI models. So how do we prepare for this AI future? The first step would be regulation. Governments must step up to regulate AI first. We missed that train with social media, but this time, governments must act in time. Help workers prepare for change. One step could be setting minimum wages. It could ease the pressure that technology is putting on jobs. The second could be working on workers' rights. Governments must ensure they're not compromised. And India too is looking at regulation, not to curb artificial intelligence, but to create guardrails to protect people. Long story short, artificial intelligence is the future. We cannot wish it away. That doesn't mean we won't have jobs. I'll give an example, one that hits closer home. You may have heard of AI anchors, bots that read out news bulletins, but you still tune in every night. Guess it is the human touch that makes all the difference. And we have more news from India. The Finance Ministry has announced a big decision. Online gaming will now be taxed in India. How much? 28%, as decided by the GST Council. This is a federal body. It decides indirect taxes in India. And I know there will be 2 sets of reactions to this news. 1, who cares? It's just games anyway. And 2, this will kill India's gaming industry. Now, if you belong to the first group, this story is for you. Because online gaming is huge. The industry here in India is worth around $2.8 billion. By 2025, it will be worth $5 billion. The global industry is valued at $196 billion. My point is quite simple. There is big money involved. And let me explain how this works. If you go on the internet, you will find hundreds of online games. Some of them are really popular. You may have heard of games like Fortnite or Minecraft. Here in India, betting games are also quite big. Games like Dream 11 or MPL. You don't bet on who wins or who loses because that would be illegal. Instead, you create a virtual team of players before the match. If those players do well in the actual match, you win. To enter these games, you pay upfront, sort of like an entry fee at your local gaming arcade. If you win, you can get a lot of money. Take Dream 11 for instance. You can enter the game by paying just 8 rupees. But guess what the total prize pool is? 12 lakh rupees. First prize winners can get up to 4 lakh rupees. Imagine that. You pay 8 rupees, you get 4 lakhs. This should tell you why online gaming is so popular. Now let me tell you what the tax means. The GST, as we said, is an indirect tax. Technically, it is levied on the producer or seller. In this case, the gaming companies. But in practice, this tax burden, like most tax burden, is shifted to us, the consumer. So here's what's happening. Until now, the tax on gaming was negligible. If you spend $100, you pay, say, $1.8 in GST. Now you must pay $28 in tax. What does that mean? It means that your prize pool is now a lot smaller, and smaller prize pool equals less participation. So gaming companies are not happy. They say the new tax will kill the industry completely. Now here's something else that you should know. Online gaming does not have borders. There are big companies in the US and China, and they don't have to pay 28% tax. In fact, they dominate this market, the gaming market. American companies make up 23% of this market, Chinese companies 25%. So experts say Indian gamers will change loyalties. Instead of Indian games, they will switch to American and Chinese games. Then what happens to the Indian industry? Business leaders say it could perish. The finance minister has pushed back against this suggestion. She says the idea is not to kill any industry. Listen to this.
इंडस्ट्री को खत्म करना ऐसे कोई कुछ हमारे एजेंडा में नहीं है. कैसीनो को प्रमोट करने के लिए, क्योंकि वो टूरिज्म का बहुत अहम मुद्दा है एक आध स्टेट्स के लिए, उसमें टैक्स फूड प्रोडक्ट्स से भी कम होना चाहिए क्या?
The government's argument is quite simple. You can't tax online games like rice or wheat. One is essential, the other is not. So the government says 28% tax was necessary. But what about other countries? How do they tax online games? In the US, the rate depends on which state you're in. The average is about 10%. In the UK, it depends on how much you make. Their rate is between 15 and 50%. And what about China? Well, Beijing offers tax breaks to gaming companies, meaning some of them have to pay no taxes. Some state media agencies have called for taxes to be levied, but so far Beijing has refused. So governments in the West do tax online games. Sometimes the rate is as high as 50%, 50. Then why is India's decision so controversial? Well, a couple of reasons for that. One, India's gaming industry is only finding its feet. We are competing with well-established American and Chinese rivals. And two, there is already tax on winning from online games, a 30% tax. It is deducted at source. So put together, the average gamer is going to have to pay a lot. The question is, could there have been a middle ground? Certainly 1.8% tax was not viable, but is 28% too high? The government says it was a necessary move. We'll have to wait and see how it affects Indian games. Most of them are in fact betting games based on cricket, and it's not something the West or China has traditionally dealt with. So who knows? Maybe there is still hope. The Cricket World Cup will begin soon in India. Maybe that will answer some of the questions. Barbenheimer. Now that's a word I never thought I would say, but you see, I must talk about it because cinema doesn't get more explosive or pink than this. The word Barbenheimer is a portmanteau, or a mix of the titles Barbie and Oppenheimer. Two high-profile movies with nothing in common except a looming box office collision. They will both release on the 21st of July, but this is more than a black versus pink box office battle. It has become a meme fest, a total mood, a fan favorite phenomenon. And this is good for cinema. Our next report tells you more.
This is Barbenheimer, a 5-hour commitment, a testament to the power of memes. Yes, memes that rule the social media obsessed world. They've taken over 2 mega movies: Greta Gerwig's Barbie, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and birthed this portmanteau, Barbenheimer. How is this even a thing? After all, these 2 movies are poles apart. Oppenheimer is a grim, dark movie, a 3-hour history lesson about a man who created the nuclear holocaust. And then there's Barbie, a movie based on the iconic Barbie doll, and it's supposed to be ultra pink and the very opposite of serious. These movies have absolutely nothing in common except their release date, July 21st. And this very thing has become the butt of jokes, the inspiration for fan art, and of course, memes. Now, why is this a big deal? You see, these movies don't appeal to the same audience. Oppenheimer is what you would call a classic dad movie. You would expect men dressed in dark-colored shirts dragging their buddies for this dark movie. And maybe they'll sneak a cigarette before they enter a theater. Then there's Barbie, which was expected to receive a more female audience, and you can expect squealing and raw excitement in theaters.
I think Barbie represents to me a multi-generational woman who, as years have gone by, has really found her empowerment in being a woman and making little girls realize they could really be anything that they want to be.
Well, she has a million careers. Her outfits are so cool, and I just love Barbie.
I mean, I obviously played with her when I was a little kid, so it's just like now that I'm older, she's such an icon, and like, you know, it's Barbie.
But, all thanks to the memes floating on the internet, these movies have become a double-decker blockbuster. Fans are excited to jump on the hype train and watch both these movies. All kinds of fans. They're deciding outfits, which is a mix of aesthetics from both movies. They're planning the order in which they want to watch these movies. Barbie feels like a brunch movie to many, maybe because this pink fiesta can be followed by a hearty brunch, and the mimosas people down can help them cope with the Oppenheimer screening. But jokes apart, people aren't messing around when it comes to the Barbenheimer. And for cinema, this is really good news, because Barbenheimer is a free marketing campaign for the movies, and maybe it's better than what they could have come up with on their own, and even the stars are jumping on it. Oppenheimer protagonist Cillian Murphy promoted Barbie in a tweet, and the Barbie star Margot Robbie also played into it. She showcased her tickets to Oppenheimer. Barbie is expected to collect $80 million to $90 million during its opening weekend, and Oppenheimer about $45 million. This is big money, all thanks to this free internet campaign, which was much needed for Hollywood. Making movies is tough business. It always has been. But now the bar is higher than ever before because of the pandemic. It shuttered the movie theaters, paused movie productions, and hurt revenues all around. All in all, it was very bad for business. And 3 years later, cinema is still trying to bounce back. But the demand for movie-going isn't what it was. So for cinema, Barbenheimer seems like a savior. Its utter weirdness is just as crucial as its intelligence. And it's bringing cinema more than just light-hearted relief.
For our next story, let me tell you about a word, obsess. I'm sure you've heard it before. It was first used in the 16th century, but back then its meaning was a little different, much like being possessed, but with a twist. To be obsessed meant that the devil has occupied your body, but you're aware of what's happening, meaning you're forced to do something, you know what you're doing, but you just can't stop. Today, the word obsessed has changed in meaning, but when it comes to weight loss, it seems like the old definition still plays out. Because we are obsessed with losing weight, we drug and jab our bodies to become thin, even if it harms us, to the point where some people become suicidal. And this is not an exaggeration. I know it feels like an ambush, but let me explain. It all started with just a bill of goods, cheap and convenient foods. They were deliberately designed to be overeaten, engineered to override our willpower, so we stuffed our faces with them. But then we were shamed for doing so by diet peddlers, celebrity magazines, and social media. They showed us size 0 figures, sculpted waists, and highly contoured faces, usually all three in one body. And they told us to shake things up with one intermittent fast here and another almond diet there. But that didn't cut it. So they pointed to weight loss supplements, drugs, and injections. The result was this: people are not only still gaining weight, they've also developed additional health problems, both physical and mental. Weight loss injections like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Saxendra are apparently making people suicidal. These injections are now under investigation. Europe's drug regulator is probing them, probing the possible link between these jabs and thoughts of suicide and self-harm. This sounds highly problematic, but it's also believable. Because all weight loss medicines have potential side effects like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, body aches, tiredness, depression, and suicidal thoughts. So a slim body at the cost of big fat health problems. These drugs curb your appetite, shift your hormonal balance, and promise you weight loss, but there's no guarantee, and definitely no long-term benefits. Plus, they cost a bomb, anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a year, so obviously people are frustrated. They're losing money, but not losing weight, and they're gaining side effects. Let me show you another set of numbers. More than 60% of patients who are prescribed weight loss drugs stop within a year, but they find new takers. Why do you think that happens? People are not crazy. No one wants additional health problems. The problem is the system. It is against us. Do you think drug makers do not know about the side effects? They do. And they don't even try to hide them. But they don't tell us clearly either. Take, for example, the weight loss drugs that make you suicidal, that could make you suicidal. Their warnings say the product could give you suicidal thoughts. But suicidal behavior is not listed as a side effect. It's not the same. And this is a problem. They want you to read between the lines. While they make money off you, billions of dollars of money, within the next decade, the weight loss industry could be worth $200 billion. Today, around 1 billion people the world over are obese. Global obesity rates have tripled over the past decade. And these drugs promise change. So people fall for them. They trust the system. Not just obese patients, but even people who feel that their bodies are disappointing. Those who live in a cycle of starvation, obsession, binging, and purging. When medication promises a win, they take it. But where is the regulation? Who is looking out for the users of these medicines? Is it good enough to just publish the fine print on medicine bottles? People are making themselves sick to be thinner. Millions are trapped between hope, misery, and lies. They will buy anything that promises to fix them. Yet the mirror rarely shows people what they want to see, because maybe the mirror itself is distorted. But is anyone fixing it? And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. The Indian Army, Navy, and Air Force contingent held a practice session in France ahead of the Bastille Day parade. They marched to the tune of the song Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. It translates to, better than the entire world is our India. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese joked about a controversial moment in the Ashes cricket series. In Bulgaria, a dash cam captured the moment when a meteor fell on the earth. It lit up the night sky. And finally, we're taking you back in history. This one is especially for the boomers. On this day in 1962, rock band The Rolling Stones performed for the first time ever in London. At that time, the band only had 5 members. The 6th member was hired later that year. Over the next 5 decades, this band held over 2,000 concerts around the world. We're leaving you with this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm sorry I didn't bring my sandpaper with me.
There's a crease.